In this video, I'm going to show you how to graph equations by hand by making t-tables. So here's the equation that we're going to graph first. Y equals 1/2 x minus 3. Let's say I wanted to find the value of y when x is 2. I want to find the value of x when y is negative 3. And I want to find the value of y when x is negative 2. So I can make this t-table. So if I look at the first point, I'm looking for the value of y when x is 2. So I'm going to plug into the equation y equals 1/2 x minus 3. I'm going to replace the x with the 2. So I'm going to have y equals 1/2. And then I'm going to plug in 2. So this is where x was, but I'm replacing it with 2, minus 3. So 1/2 times 2 is 1. And I get 1 minus 3 is equal to negative 2. So I now know the value of y when x is 2. Y is negative 2. Now let's look at if I want to find the value of x when y is negative 3. So now instead of plugging in for x, I'm plugging in for y. So I'm going to have negative 3 is equal to 1/2 x minus 3. This is what y used to be right here, but we replaced it with negative 3. So I'm going to add 3 to both sides because I want to solve this for x. So I get 0 is equal to 1/2 x, which means x has got to be 0. So I now know the value of x when y is negative 3. Last one, I want to find the value of y when x is negative 2. So I'm going to replace x with negative 2. So I have 1/2 times negative 2, and I'm going to subtract 3. So that gives me, let's see, 1/2 times negative 2 is negative 1, minus 3, and that gives me a negative 4. So I now know that when x is negative 2, y is negative 4. Now I can use all these values to plot this equation. So if I plot the point 2, negative 2, so I'm going to come over here. Here's 2 on my x, negative 2 on my y. So here's the point 2, negative 2. Now I'm going to plot the point 0, negative 3. So I'm not moving horizontally at all. I'm going to stay at 0 for x. And then for y, I'm going to come down to negative 3. And then at x equals negative 2 and y equals negative 4, that's this point right here. And then once I get my points plotted, I'm going to draw my line. Now I want to make sure that I put arrows on both sides. If we don't put the arrows on both sides, that indicates that it ends at some point, wherever you stop drawing the line. The arrow tells me that it goes on forever. So although it's a small difference in the way the picture looks, it's a big difference in the meaning. So arrows are important. Okay, for the next example, let's say I want to find the value of y when x is 2. I want to find the value of x when y is 2. And let's say I want to find the value of y when x is negative 2. So what I'm going to do is to find the value of y when x is 2, I'm going to replace x with 2. So I have 3y is equal to negative 2 times 2 plus 6. So I have 3y is equal to negative 4 plus 6, which is 2. So I have 3y is equal to 2. And then I have to divide both sides by 3, which gives me y is equal to 2/3. So I know when x is 2, y is 2/3. Now the next point, I'm looking for the value of x given the value of y. I know the value of y is 2, so I'm going to plug in 2 where I see y. So I have 3 times 2 is equal to minus 2x plus 6. So this gives me 6 is equal to minus 2x plus 6. I have to subtract 6 from both sides, which gives me negative 2x is equal to 0, which means x is 0. Okay, last one. I need to find the value of y when x is negative 2. So I'm going to plug in negative 2 in for x and solve for y. So that gives me 3y is equal to 4 plus 6, which is 10. So I've got 3y is equal to 10. And when I divide both sides by 3, I get y is 10/3. Now when I plot all these points, I'm going to plot the point 2 and 2/3. So I come over here to 2. 2/3 isn't quite 1. It's about right here. Then I'm going to plot the point 0, 2. That's right here. And then I'm going to plot the point negative 2 and 10/3. Now 10/3 is approximately 3.3. So I'm going to come over to negative 2 and come up a little bit past 3. And there's my line. In this example, example 3, we're going to specifically look for the x and y intercepts. So when I make my t-table, I want to find the x-intercept, which would be the value of x when y is 0. That would be my x-intercept. And to find my y-intercept, that's the value of y when x is 0. So for the first value here in our t-table, I want to plug in 0 for y. So that gives me 4x is equal to 12, so x is 3. That means my x-intercept is 3. So it's going to cross the x-axis right here at 3, 0. Now to find my y-intercept, I'm going to plug in x is 0. So I have 4 times 0 minus 3y is equal to 12. So I have negative 3y is equal to 12. When I divide both sides by negative 3, I get y is equal to negative 4. So that tells me that's my y-intercept. So that means it crosses at this point here. So when I connect those 2 points, I get my line. And I got to remember to put my arrows. Okay, the last thing I want to show you in this video is how we can actually use our calculator to graph equations. Now, the thing with doing this on the calculator, you have to make sure that your equation is solved for y. And then the other thing is you're going to have to adjust your own window. So in order to graph this example here, it has to be solved for y. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to divide everything by 3. So I have minus 2/3 x plus 2. So now I know what my y is equal to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit my button right here that says y equals, and I'm going to put in what my y is equal to. So I'm going to put in negative, and then in parentheses, 2 divided by 3 for negative 2/3. Make sure you use this negative button rather than the subtraction button, or else it will yell at you. Then to get the x button, I'm going to use this button right here where it says xt, theta, and n. That's our variable button. And then I'm going to do plus 2. Now, this equation doesn't have particularly large numbers or unusual numbers. So if you want to use the standard viewing window, you're going to hit zoom. And you're going to scroll down to option number 6, standard. And that means it's going to graph it from minus 10 to 10 on the x-axis with the unit or a scale of 1. And it's going to graph on the y-axis minus 10 to 10 with the scale of 1. And there's my line. Now, if you wanted to adjust your window manually, if maybe you wanted to zoom in or out, or maybe go out to 12 on the x-axis. Let's say you wanted to, instead of going from -10 to 10, you want to go from -12 to 12. So if you want to adjust it manually, you hit your window button. Here is your minimum x value, your maximum x value, and then your scale for your x's. And then if you look down a little bit lower, here's your minimum value for y, your maximum value for y, and then the scale. So let's say I want to go from -12 to 12 on my x-axis, and let's say I want to go by a scale of 2. So that means each of my tick marks is going to be worth 2. So instead of it being labeled 1, 2, 3, 4, it's going to be 2, 4, 6, 8. Once I adjust it manually the way I want it, I just hit graph and it adjusts it for me. There you go. Okay, second example, same idea. We have to first solve this for y so we can plug it in on the calculator. So I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. And then I'm going to divide by 2. So I have y is equal to 2x minus a half. So I'm going to go back to my y equals. If I want to keep that line in there, I can just go down to the next line. Or if I want to take that out, I can clear it and put in my next line. So I'm going to put in our new graph, which is 2x minus, and then I'm going to put in 1 divided by 2 for a half in parentheses. And I'm going to hit enter. Now if I hit graph, it's going to keep the same scale I had before. If I want to zoom in or out, I can use this. I can hit zoom in or zoom out here, or I can manually adjust the window. If I want to go back to -10 to 10, I can just change it here. And then once you adjust it the way you want it, you can hit graph again.